Welcome to the It Factor. We're Jemmy and Nye, exploring a new blog post by Mr. Len Kaplan, CEO of CDML, an MSP in Queens, NY, offering network management, VoIP Hook ISS, cybersecurity compliance, IS, cloud, and Microsoft 365 and Azure.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
If you're a small business owner or manage IT for a growing organization,
This episode is for you.
stay tuned.
You know, it's amazing how much small businesses rely on technology these days.
Absolutely.
And that makes cybersecurity such a big concern, maybe more than ever before.
I think you're right, and Mr. Kaplan, he jumps right into a topic that's unsettling, to say the least.
Yeah.
Cyber attacks on major telecom providers right here in the U.S.
You're talking about Verizon, AT&T.
Lumen Technologies, they've all been hit.
Yeah, and they're all pointing the finger at a group they're calling Salt Typhoon, a hacking group that may be tied to China.
So this isn't just a couple of hackers in a basement.
No.
This is potentially a state-sponsored operation.
Potentially, yeah, that's what's concerning.
That's a big deal.
And what's interesting is this group, Salt Typhoon, they've been around for a while, since at least 2019.
Oh, wow.
But their focus was mainly in Southeast Asia. So the shift towards the U.S.,
Yeah.
especially companies that are so important to our infrastructure, it raises a lot of questions.
What are they after?
Right, what's the motive?
It feels like we're entering this new era.
Yeah.
Mr. Kaplan uses this phrase, cyber warfare, and it's not just a theoretical concept anymore.
It's real.
This is happening.
These attacks on the telecom companies, they could have gotten access to sensitive data, even wiretap information.
That's scary.
It is. Think about it. Disrupting communications, monitoring government activities, gathering intelligence. It's like a whole new battleground.
So it's not just about stealing data.
Right.
It's about disrupting our lives, our businesses, our government.
Could be, yeah.
Okay, but let's bring this back to our listeners.
Sure.
Why should a small business owner even care about what's happening with these telecom giants?
It's a good question, and there are a few reasons why. First, you rely on these companies for your own communication needs. If their systems are compromised, well, that creates a ripple effect. Your data, your calls, even your internet connection could be at risk.
So it's not just a problem for the big guys, it trickles down.
Exactly. It can impact everyone.
Wow.
And then there's the fact that cybercriminals often see small businesses as, well, let's say, easier targets.
Oh, how so?
You might not have the same level of sophisticated security measures in place as, say, a Fortune 500 company.
So we're like the low-hanging fruit.
In a way, yes. And you might think, well, what do I have that they'd want? But even what seems like basic info, client contact details, internal communications, it can be valuable to the wrong people.
So no business is too small to be a target.
That's the scary truth.
It makes those data breach headlines hit a little closer to home.
For sure.
So what's a small business owner to do? Should we just unplug everything and go back to carrier pigeons?
I wouldn't recommend that. Technology is essential for running a business today. It's about being smart and proactive.
Okay.
One simple step, the FBI and CISA recommend using encrypted messaging apps for sensitive communication.
What are some examples?
Think Microsoft Teams, Signal, or WhatsApp.
Okay.
Even Telegram has a secret chat feature that uses end-to-end encryption, meaning only you and the person you're talking to can read those messages.
Wait, Telegram, isn't that the app with all the, questionable memes?
It might have a certain reputation, but that secret chat feature is actually quite secure. And speaking of security, Mr. Kaplan brings up another point that's really relevant for small businesses: the devices you use every day.
Okay, I'm listening. What kind of devices?
He specifically calls out TP-Link routers. They're incredibly popular, especially for small businesses and home offices.
Right, they are.
But the U.S. government has raised some concerns about potential security risks.
Really? I actually have a TP-Link router in my home office.
Oh, do?
What kind of risks are we talking about?
There have been investigations into potential ties to Chinese cyber attacks, concerns about vulnerabilities that could be exploited, even rumors of backdoors built into the software.
That's enough to make you think twice.
It is.
So what do I do? Should I rip out my router and throw it in the trash?
Not necessarily, but it is a good reminder that even devices that seem totally innocent can pose a security risk. You need to be aware of where your technology comes from and what that might mean for your security.
So it's not just about the software we use, it's the hardware too.
Yeah, everything is connected.
And that leads us to Mr. Kaplan's next point, choosing technology partners you can trust.
Ah, yes.
He specifically mentions Dell and HP and says he prefers them over Lenovo.
Interesting.
And he gets into a lot of detail about why.
What does he say?
He mentions China's national intelligence law,
Right.
Lenovo's past security issues. It paints a pretty concerning picture.
Yeah, it does. And he's essentially saying that the laws and the standards in a company's home country, well, they can impact your data privacy and your security.
So where a company is based matters.
Yeah, it's something to consider, especially when you're trusting them with sensitive information.
I never really thought about it like that before.
It's a whole other layer to think about.
Okay, so we've got potential vulnerabilities in our telecom providers, concerns about everyday devices like routers, and now we're supposed to worry about the origin of our technology partners.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It feels like a lot for a small business owner who's already juggling a million things.
It absolutely is, but the good news is you don't have to become a cybersecurity expert overnight.
That's a relief.
There are resources and experts out there who can help.
Okay, that's good to know.
We'll delve into some practical advice and talk about the role of managed service providers like CDML right after this quick break.
Sounds good. Okay, so we've uncovered some pretty daunting cybersecurity threats.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Let's talk about some solutions.
Okay, sounds good.
Mr. Kaplan really emphasizes the importance of working with a trusted managed service provider, or MSP.
They can be a real game changer for a small business, especially when it comes to cybersecurity.
How so?
They're like your outsourced IT department, taking care of everything from network management to security monitoring to data backups.
It's like having a whole team of IT experts at your fingertips, but without having to hire them full-time.
Exactly.
That's pretty appealing, especially for a small business with limited resources.
Absolutely. And Mr. Kaplan's company, CDML, they're a good example of an MSP that specializes in helping small businesses with all things cybersecurity.
What kinds of services do they offer?
Well, they offer things like secure VoIP services with advanced encryption.
Why is that so important?
Well, traditional phone lines can be vulnerable to interception, you know.
So with CDML's VoIP solution, you can be sure your business calls are protected, even if the telecom provider has a breach.
That's right.
That's reassuring.
They also offer Microsoft Teams for secure communication and collaboration, which has become really popular.
Teams, yeah, I've heard of that.
And for good reason, it gives you a central platform for messaging, video calls, file sharing, all with built-in security.
It sounds like a one-stop shop for secure communication.
You could say that.
So beyond secure communication, what else does CDML offer?
They provide a range of services to keep your whole IT environment safe.
Like what?
Network security, threat detection, data protection, compliance support, even digital transformation strategies.
Wow, a pretty comprehensive approach.
It is. They're not just putting a Band-Aid on a specific problem. They help you build a strong foundation for security and growth.
That's important.
And what's really valuable is they stay up to date on the latest cybersecurity threats.
Because things are constantly changing in that world.
They are. New threats pop up all the time.
Right.
And CDML, they're dedicated to keeping your systems and your data protected.
It's like having a cybersecurity partner who's always watching your back.
Exactly. They're looking out for you.
So even with an MSP on board, are there still things small business owners need to be doing on their own?
Oh, absolutely. Mr. Kaplan stresses the importance of basic cybersecurity hygiene.
Like what kind of things?
You know, creating strong passwords, using multi-factor authentication, and making sure all your software is up to date.
We hear that advice all the time, but why is it so crucial?
Well, think about it. Your software updates, they often include security patches that fix vulnerabilities that have been found.
Right.
So if you're not updating, you're basically leaving the door open for attackers.
That's not good.
No, it's not. And strong passwords and multi-factor authentication, well, they make it much harder for anyone who shouldn't be in your accounts to get access, even if they somehow figure out your password.
So even if someone steals my password, they still can't get in.
Right. Multi-factor authentication adds another layer of security.
Okay, I get it, but what is that extra layer?
It requires you to confirm your identity through another way, like a text message or an app.
So even if a hacker has my password, they're still blocked unless they also have my phone or my authentication app.
Exactly. It's a simple thing that can significantly reduce your risk.
I like simple.
And Mr. Kaplan also mentions monitoring call logs and usage for anything suspicious.
Makes sense, but what should a small business owner be on the lookout for?
Things like calls to international numbers you don't recognize, sudden increases in call volume, or calls outside of your normal business hours. Those could be red flags.
So basically, just being aware and proactive.
That's it, but I know it can feel overwhelming.
Especially for someone who's already wearing a lot of hats.
I hear you, and that's another area where an MSP can really help.
By taking some of that burden off your shoulders.
Exactly. They have the tools and expertise to watch your systems all the time and let you know if there's a problem.
like a 200/7 security team.
You could say that.
And while we're on the topic of threats, Mr. Kaplan talks about the ones that can come from outside, but he doesn't ignore the dangers that might be lurking inside a business.
You mean internal threats?
Yes, things like a disgruntled employee, careless mistakes, even accidental data leaks.
Those can pose a big risk.
So it's not enough to just protect ourselves from the outside world.
Right. You need to create a culture of security within your own organization.
How do you do that?
Employee training is key.
What does that look like?
Teach your staff about common cybersecurity threats, things like phishing attacks, social engineering scams, and how to handle data responsibly.
Because even with the best security technology, a simple mistake can undo it all.
You got it. If someone clicks on a bad link or gives their password to a scammer, well, there's not much technology can do about that.
It's the human element.
Exactly. And this is another area where an MSP can be really valuable.
Yeah.
They can help you develop and implement training programs for your employees that are specific to your business.
So it's all about having a well-rounded approach to cybersecurity.
That's the key.
Protecting yourself from external threats, mitigating internal risks, and having the right technology and expertise on your side.
Absolutely. And remember, cybersecurity isn't a one-and-done thing.
You can't just set it and forget it.
It's an ongoing process. You got to stay vigilant, adapt to new threats, and always be working to improve your security.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
I like that analogy.
But having the right support can make all the difference.
For sure.
Now, before we move on, there's something that Mr. Kaplan doesn't explicitly address in his blog post, but I think it's important.
What's that?
Cost.
Ah,
Cybersecurity can seem like a big expense, especially for a small business.
I understand.
How can a business owner justify that investment?
It's a valid concern, but you got to think about the cost of not investing in cybersecurity.
What do you mean?
A data breach, it can be catastrophic for a small business.
How so?
You could be talking about financial losses, legal problems, damage to your reputation. You could even lose customers.
So it's like that old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Exactly. Investing in cybersecurity up front can save you a whole lot of trouble down the road.
And working with an MSP, can that actually be a cost-effective way to do it?
It can be, yeah.
How so?
They can help you figure out where to spend your security budget, they can use shared resources, and you get access to expertise that you might not be able to afford on your own.
It's not just about peace of mind. It makes good business sense.
It does.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Mr. Kaplan's insights.
It's been fascinating, really.
We've covered a lot.
We have, from cyber attacks on these big telecom companies to the importance of finding tech partners you can trust to the role of an MSP.
It's a lot to digest.
But the most important thing I hope our listeners take away from this is that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility.
We all have a part to play.
It's not just about technology. It's about building a culture of security in your organization and being proactive about protecting your data and your business.
You don't have to go it alone.
Right. There are resources and experts out there to help you every step of the way.
Stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay secure.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's a lot for small business owners to absorb.
It is, but I think the key is to think about cybersecurity strategically, not just react when something happens.
So what you're saying is small business owners should be taking steps to protect themselves before anything bad happens.
Exactly, and the first step is to understand what your risks are.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, think about it. What kind of data do you have? How do you talk to clients and employees? What systems and devices are absolutely essential for your business to run?
Okay, and once you know where you're vulnerable,
then you can start putting the right security measures in place.
and what are those measures?
It could be simple things like having strong passwords and using multi-factor authentication,
Right, we talked about that.
or more advanced solutions like firewalls, intrusion detection systems, even encrypting your data.
So it sounds like a layered approach is best.
Think of it like building a fortress around your business. You want layers of defense to make it really tough for anyone to break in.
And an MSP can help with that.
They can be like the architect of your fortress.
I like that analogy.
They bring the expertise, the experience, and they're always watching out for new threats.
And we talked about how they can help with training employees and planning for what to do if something bad does happen.
Right, because even with the best defenses, sometimes mistakes happen, humans make errors.
And if there's a breach,
You need to know how to contain it, how to recover quickly.
so having a plan can make all the difference.
It could mean the difference between a minor headache and a total disaster.
So to wrap things up, what's the main point you want our listeners to take away from this?
Cybersecurity, It's not just an IT issue.
It's a business issue.
That's right. It's about protecting your data, your reputation, and your bottom line.
And even though the threats are out there and they're constantly changing,
There are solutions.
you're saying small businesses can protect themselves?
They can, if they're proactive, if they work with the right partners, if they make cybersecurity a top priority.
It's about being smart and being prepared.
Well said. It's about knowing what you're up against, making good decisions, and creating a culture of security in your business.
Great advice.
Thanks for having me.
We've learned a lot today.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us on The It Factor.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, stay safe and stay secure.